Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever it happens to be for you. We finally made it. Round 21 of our first season in Formula One 2019, Abu Dhabi. We are tied with Daniel Ricciardo in the points heading into this last race. So if we can come ahead of him, we will jump another spot up in the rankings. He is in that, moved into that much faster Red Bull seat, so we'll see what he can make do of that. So let's pop into our messages real quick, see what our weather forecast and such looks like. Good to go so far. No rain this weekend. You can see the development tree. The other teams, a couple other teams have shot up ahead of us, so we are back down to second to last on the performance index chart. But we are been pretty consistently outpacing that just because I'm starting to outplay the difficulty. So once I hit the start of Australia next season, I will spend some time in free practice restarting it and tweaking to find a good spot to start season 2 on the difficulty curve. But it'll probably be about a 10-point difficulty jump. So here we are, just kind of throwing on our last few more worn components for practice. Save that number 3 ICE for the actual race, make it the rest of the way there. So here we are after practice, getting ready to head into qualifying. You can see just how much damage we did to that number 5 ICE, and go ahead and swap on. A lot of the number 3 column was pretty good, just because that I mostly used that in Monza and only 1 or 2 other places, just kind of how it worked out. But so our freshest power unit components for qualifying. So here we go.
Here we are at the beautiful Yas Island circuit, where qualifying is about to begin. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the action. And I'm here, of course, with Anthony Davidson on what has turned out to be a very pleasant day indeed. No weather to interfere, no problems on the track, so absolutely no room for error.
That's right, Crofty. It's looking good out there at the moment. Each team will have their own game plan for this session, and of course, once the cars leave the garage, they'll be under parc fermé conditions, so any last-minute adjustments need to be done right here and now. Beyond that, it's all up to the driver. Who can keep their tyres in the right temperature? Who can hit their apexes? No race fuel on board these days, of course. These are the fastest cars we've had in a long, long time, and it's right here in qualifying where they're at their absolute peak. Let's get started.
Information time. We've lost oil pressure. Looks like a leak somewhere in the system. We're on standby for the time being until we can patch it up.
So our Q1 is going to be cut a little bit short. We got about 5 minutes eaten out of our quality time with a oil pressure issue, so we'll jump ahead. I'm just making some final tweaks to the car setup. I was running a lot of higher downforce in practice, but we were typically bottom of the speed trap. So I decided to take a little bit of wing off for qualifying and also drop the ride height just a little bit, which we seem to be riding the curbs all right in practice, so I felt pretty safe going down a click, front and rear, on our ride height. And that should get us a little bit more top speed because less drag when you're closer to the ground. But here we are, taking the final corner, getting ready to hop in for our first flying lap here in qualifying session number. Go about 75 meters, hitting the braking point for turn 1, and then we're into this uphill set of sweepers. Little left-hander and right-hander. If you get the line right, it's an easy flat out. If you get it wrong, you're going to have to lift. And then we are down about to 100-meter braking zone for this chicane. You can go third gear through the first, you have to drop all the way down to second for the second part of the chicane, and then into the very slow first gear hairpin, and then on the power strong as we head down the first of 2 DRS zones on this track. A very, very long straightaway headed into a chicaned turn here. Typically brake around the 125 to 110 meter section there. Hard on the brakes for that very sharp left-right, and then we are back on the power through this sweeping section. Open up the DRS once more. Take a little breather to make some any adjustments you have to make on your lap, and find your 100-meter board and mash it just before you get there to set up for the left, right, left, setting you up for the next sector here. Tight, just over 90-degree left-hander, and we are on the throttle for this flat-out right-hander that goes into this next right, which sets up probably one of the trickiest braking points on the circuit. You want to try and break in a straight line there, but since you're just coming off of that flat-out right-hander, you've got the car a bit unsettled. And now we're into the track's best approximation of a city circuit, a lot of 90-degree sharp right-handers, 2 right-handers before we head down the short start-finish straight. Not a huge long run-up to get to the start-finish line each time, so you got to really nail it if you're going to try and make an overtake. So here we are at lap 3 of Q1. We're already pretty safely through, but we're just getting some good times in. We've followed Vettel through the first 2 straights, hence why we're purple in the first 2 sectors, so we got a good tow through there. We were able to make the pass on him fairly cleanly through there. As you can see, we're about 7/10, almost 8/10 up on this, our best lap here, and purple through the first 2 sectors means we have a very good chance of setting fastest lap overall in the session. We're going to cross the line almost a full second up, and we'll see what that gives us in Q1, which is first in Q1, but again, we only need to come top 15 to move through, so it was really more about figuring out and dialing in the track. And you see our teammate George Russell also made it through in P13, so we'll go ahead and jump to the end of Q2. Obviously, like I've been doing the last few races, I tried to make it through on the medium tire, found myself in the drop zone, so here we are out on the soft tire as we are as the checkered flag is waved. We were able to start our lap just in time, so we're one of the last cars to settle out here. Sitting P14 right now, just need to get ourselves up to P10 to make it through, but we have a good solid improvement, 8/10. Big front right lockup into that tough braking zone. As I was saying, that flat right-hander really unloads that inside right when you get on the brakes, and if you don't wait for the car to settle, you will lock it up. Thankfully, the game does not model flat spots, otherwise I would have been having to probably start the race with the Q2 tires with a massive flat spot on the front right. So it just does heat and tire wear. Luckily, we just make it through just behind our teammate into Q3. But we did do a little bit of damage to that front right tire that we're going to have to be starting on in the race. So here we are, last couple corners, Q3, checkered flag is waved. We are sitting P9 at the moment. We'll see, we've improved by about 6/10 as we cross the line. We'll see where that puts us on the grid.
We're very happy with our position. Well done.
P5.
We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who will be fronting the grid. Hamilton, Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
We slapped ourselves right in the middle of all of the quick upper team cars. The 2 Mercedes ahead of us, but 1 Ferrari and 1 Red Bull behind us as well.
So here we are, ready to go racing for one final time this year. Another season of victories, controversies and rivalries lies in our wake. And just one challenge remains here in the United Arab Emirates on a circuit that made its spectacular debut back in 2009. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The drivers will be racing here at the Yas Island circuit through 21 corners and a lap distance of around 3.4 miles. There are a few opportunities to pass, with long straights and DRS zones in 2 places, turns 8 and 11. Plenty of close racing then, plenty of speed, and plenty of drama to be found in the laps ahead. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, I want to ask you about Lewis Hamilton. They've had a fantastic campaign. It's been a wonderful year, and they come into this weekend's Grand Prix as a fully deserving champion.
It really is well deserved. I wouldn't say it's been a faultless title challenge, but certainly one that has been consistent and well managed. Here's hoping they let off a bit of steam today and give us an exciting race.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Oldtimer, Sebastian Vettel, and Faber, Russell, Hülkenberg, Verstappen, they've taken a grid penalty, and Devon Butler, Sainz, Stroll, Pierre Gasly, and Perez. Norris, Albon, Kimi Raikkonen and Daniel Ricciardo. Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
This is the final race of the season. Go out there and enjoy it.
Decent number of penalties on the grid moves us up to P4 and puts our main challenger in the standings. Danny Rick a fair ways down the order, so we have a pretty good shot, I think, of outrunning him and finishing ahead of him in the points for the season. So we're going ahead and going to go with the 2-stop that they suggested. I came in, I thought maybe about tweaking front wing, which is one of the things I can change, adding a little bit of downforce. But in the end, I decided against it. Decided just to go to the grid and see what we can do. So P4, we've got the 5 red lights up and away quickly. Wasn't quite ready for it. A little bit of a slow start. We're going to go ahead and hold the inside. There's a couple cars are getting by us into the braking zone for turn 1 as people really like to shut down the door. We were inside of 3 wide for a moment there. Weber and Vettel are through ahead of us. So we dropped 2 positions off the start here. You're going to see, have a little look to the inside in this first hard braking zone. And we managed to get just by Seb there. And so let's snug up to our old teammate as we get ready to head down a straight. No DRS yet, obviously. First 3 laps is until lap 3 that you can pop up a DRS, but we've got good deployment of the DRS system. We're going to go ahead and start dialing it back over the course of this lap. Just as we have the slipstream here, wasn't quite able to get a very good run to make a run on Weber there. And here we are on the power through into the next section. Next straight, pick up a little more slipstream. You can still see Seb there in the mirrors, just kind of lurking a little ways back there, not too far off the back of us. So as we get ready to head into the next sector, where it gets a lot less straight and a lot more curvy. So a heavy fuel load through this area is definitely a tough order on braking. You want to get on there early, really try not to carry too much speed through that corner. Even though we are on the soft tires, that full load of fuel really makes us work for it. So here we are coming through the last couple of corners. A little bit of oversteer on exit there. That curb can't take too much of it. It will unsettle the car pretty bad, as you just saw there. But 1 lap is in the books of the 28. We run a little wide into the braking zone. Easy to do. We wait a little bit to rejoin. Accidentally kind of pinch Seb against the inside there as he had a look, but he backs out rather intelligently. He's going to have a little peek down the inside of us, but again, we're going to go ahead and shut the door since he wasn't able to get alongside of us under braking. We're starting to lose contact with that lead group. Lucas ahead of us is starting to streak away from us just a bit. We are kind of holding Vettel up. You look on the minimap just behind Vettel there is another dot, same color as ours. That's our teammate George Russell, is managing to run in the top 10 there with us. He would be P7 at the moment. So he's off to a pretty stellar start. You can see it's pretty much a solid train behind us after that of the rest of the cars in the race. You can see Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes Alpha just kind of streaking out in front of us. So that would be Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, and oh boy, Lucas. You can see that gap is starting to open up a bit. Vettel's really kind of hounding us. We snatched that front brake a little bit in that corner, which is, I guess if I commentated every time I snatched the front brake into that corner over this race weekend, you'd probably put a master cut together over it. But luckily, a lot of those happen during nothing laps and practice and that sort of thing, so you don't have to listen to me say it over and over and over. But there's Leclerc setting the fastest lap of the race for the moment. DRS is now enabled.
Available to use when you are within 1 second of the car ahead in the DRS zone.
And so it is going to definitely be, I would say, nigh impossible to defend from Vettel with DRS down the next main straight. We may even be in danger of our teammate George Russell running by us. So really our goal is just to get as good of an exit as we can out of this hairpin and mitigate the damage, which we get a pretty awful exit and swing wide. Rejoin after the curving is over, but you can see Vettel very easily into the slipstream. George Russell is going to tuck in behind him. Has a little bit of a weave, but he is going to have to respect Vettel's braking distance, so we are able to hold our own line, go around the outside of the first turn and down the inside of the second turn and get past George Russell there. Luckily, we are now on the next straight where we have DRS available to us, so we are going to try and make a good run on Vettel here. I have a little peek down the inside, a little lockup on that front left. Really punishing these poor soft tires early in the race with that heavy fuel load, but we are able to get through, and we barged the door open, and George Russell was able to get through as well. So running P5, P6 with the Williams right now. It's a pretty solid running order. So we'll see how long we can keep that going. And at this stage of the race, this early on, you can see that front group is just kind of off and running. Not a great chance of us catching that crew, I don't think, unless something happens to one of them. They've just got a little bit more pure pace over us. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead to the start of lap 7. We've got the call to make our first pit stop of the race here. Vettel made it through our teammate. So did Max Verstappen. You can see way back behind the orange dot of McLaren, you can see a little sliver of George Russell. He's really fallen quite a bit off the pace.
Car in front is 4.3 seconds.
We're about 4 seconds off of Lucas in front of us, only about 2/10 up on Seb and Max, and so they will definitely have DRS on us as we crank up our deployment. And again, it's just going to be a matter of damage limitation. It's almost better, I found on this circuit, to let the first car get past you for this first chicane so you can roll through the second detection zone and get DRS for the next straight and have a much better chance of defending the position through the rest of the track. But we didn't get a very good exit there. You can see we still got everything turned up, DRS open. We're going to see if we can't reel in Vettel, but looks like he's just a little too far ahead of us. We're starting to run low on ERS, so we're going to have to turn that ERS deployment way down, start harvesting a lot more than we're spending. We got down to about 12% at one point there. Luckily, ERS isn't huge for this little section of track, so we are going to have plenty of braking points and opportunities to recharge those batteries as we're down in that tricky braking zone. Once again, you can see Seb, myself, and Max Verstappen right behind, running in a little 1-2-3 train here that we will break up a little bit as we come into the pits this lap. So there's the pit lane line. You can see us dive towards the inside, and so does Verstappen. So it looks like Vettel is continuing on. Myself and Verstappen, we're going to go ahead and hit that brake line, hit the pit speed limiter, and leave it in the hands now of our capable teams. See a couple more of the front runners. It looks like a Mercedes and a Ferrari just ahead are also making their first stops on that same lap. We're going to go on to the medium tires. The strategy was soft, medium, medium. Just because in practice runs and that sort of thing, I don't think we could have made the mediums last quite long enough to go on to another set of softs at the end. And I don't believe, if I remember, I don't believe we had another set of fresh softs available. They were pretty worn out from the qualifying session. So that's something I will probably start looking into next season as we have better and better Q1 results, is using one tire, just one set of softs in Q1 to make our way through to save a set for an extra set for the race, and maybe make some 2-stops work. There you see Verstappen with the DRS goes down, and you see us battle with him under braking a little bit. Teensy bit of a lockup and a little tap on the rear with our front wing. No damage done, luckily, since it was pretty square on. He wasn't able to hit that end plate or that foot plate there, but like I was talking, we get DRS down the next straight. We're going to swing very easily wide past him, beat him in the braking zone, and hold on the inside of that right part of the sweeper, and then shut the door on the left. And so we are able to get that position back from him as we are sitting P18 and 19 right now, just because a lot of the back of the grid runners that didn't make Q3 started on the medium tire. I believe a lot of those cars were going to a medium hard one-stop strategy, which I wouldn't have minded doing if we were able to make it into Q3 on the medium tire. It probably would have been a good strategy to try. It's one of those things that on paper, based on the tires and the amount of time a pit stop takes, on paper a 2-stop is usually a faster strategy on paper, but it doesn't really take into account how difficult it is to pass. There's only a few passing opportunities on this track, especially. Basically, the DRS zones are really the only way you can make a great passing opportunity. Otherwise, dirty air causes a lot of problems in closing up to the car ahead. So usually going for the one-stopper and avoiding traffic gives you a slightly faster overall race time than a two-stopper. You can see now Vettel is out in front of us. He is on another set of softs, so it looks like he's going soft, medium for his strategy, which I would have liked to have done. If I had done a two-stopper onto another set of softs, I probably would have gone soft, medium, soft. That way I could be running the fastest tire on the lightest fuel load at the end of the race and really see if I could make up some time. But again, no new soft tires, and medium stint wasn't going to take us really far enough in order to get on to another set of softs. So now you can see Seb is ahead of us and kind of caught up to a train of those slower cars. You can see it just ahead as we run a little wide, and we're still kind of battling to keep Verstappen behind us. So definitely feeling a little bit of pressure there. But luckily that train of cars ahead is including a lot of the lower midfield runners, so it's holding up Seb, and it looks like one of the Mercedes as well. So we've got a very good chance of closing up some of the gap to these front runners by virtue of, again, running a two-stop, you run the risk of coming out into traffic of a one-stop crew, and that really can hurt your overall pace. So we are gaining a lot of time on cars in front of us right now. You can see huge train that we are hoping to get on the tail of. They're definitely going to have to accordion up as Verstappen, with the DRS, goes down the inside of us. We are going to kind of let him through. I was kind of hoping he'd carry a little more speed through that corner. I had to kind of get off the throttle instead of being able to slot right in behind him. But again, we're going to just go ahead and take the DRS right back from him after we let him through. And nice and clean into the braking zone this time. Teensy bit of tire smoke there. But we were able to make that pass fully before the brake zone. So we'll see as we head into the last little part of this final sector here, if any of those midfield runners peel off of this pack and let those top runners go free. As you can see, we've basically fully caught back up. It's Hamilton, Vettel, Weber, Bottas. Really serious trouble for front-running cars right now. I mean, that's basically, P2, 3, 4, 5 in front of us. So looks like one or two maybe dived in, and then we're also catching the cars that were way ahead and are already pitting. So we're back up to P8. I still see Toro Rosso and a McLaren holding up the front of this crew. And Verstappen is right there behind us, kind of giving us some trouble. So here we are, we've closed right up onto the tail of Vettel. See if we can get a good run down here, down the straight. Everybody will have DRS, so it's going to be very hard to actually make a pass here. It's one thing to have DRS on just the car in front, but there's a long train slipstream. Everybody's got DRS, so it essentially neutralizes. But we are late on the brakes. We get just past Seb, but we are a little too eager on the throttle, and the back end kicks out on us. So we had the chance of making that pass stick, but a little bit of a heavy right foot, and we lose some ground on that train. So now went from hoping that some cars would pit out of that train so we'd be able to pick up the pace, to hoping those cars stay out and don't pit so we can get back onto the end of this train once again. But Verstappen and looks like, I believe, Hülkenberg in front of us made their way through after our mistake, and obviously we handed the position back to Seb. But luckily, again, with that slow train, the Toro Rosso in front of it, we were able to make a pretty significant close-up on that group. So we'll see who dives in this time. It looks like, yeah, the Toro Rosso and the McLaren have both dove in there. So we are basically running with the top level cars now into this sector. We have, looks like our current rival, I believe that's Perez behind us. I don't think it's Stroll. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, actually. So we definitely want to keep him behind us. Hopefully we are close enough to the 2 cars ahead once we hit the DRS detection zone that we won't be without DRS because Checo right behind us will certainly have DRS to attack us with. But it looks like we closed up enough through the hairpin, and you see that wing flip open. A nice peek through the letterbox there, and we have a chance to hold position on Perez as Verstappen and Hülkenberg in front of us are battling. That's going to help us out because the longer they go side by side, the better it is for us. So you can see we closed right up on the back of the Renault there, who is going a little bit slower. He might be harvesting energy. Might be running in a low ERS deployment mode there, which allows us a little better straight line speed, so we're able to get past him into the braking zone through the chicane there, and we're back to P7. If we get past Verstappen, we'll be back in that P5 that we had before. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, Leclerc is way out in front there. I don't believe he's made a stop yet. I think he's stretched a stint pretty long. I'm going to take a little peek at the wear. ICE is at 70%. Should be able to make the rest of the race there fine. Tires are only about 12% after running about 5 laps. So we've got a pretty healthy amount of run in those tires. So let's hop ahead a couple laps. Lap 15, we are closing up on our old teammate Lucas as the field has kind of stretched back out again. Verstappen made his way through him. Able to reel him in a good bit with DRS there. Just jump back on the throttle down the next DRS straight, crank up the ERS, and see if we can get that position back from him. So we'll tuck into the slipstream there. And as we hit the sweeper, we're going to go around the outside into the braking zone. Nice and clean by him. So those glowing red brakes. And now it's time for us to try and chase down Max Verstappen as we take a little hop over the sausage curb on the inside of that corner. Through the double kink there, onto the brakes, teeny puff of smoke as we have a tiny bit of a lockup into that corner, but we haven't been able to really space ourselves out from the racing point of Sergio Perez right behind us either. So is anybody diving in? Nope, nobody into the pits this time around.
We're approaching the pit window. You'll be on the mediums.
So we are getting close to our pit window. We're going to hop ahead 2 laps, lap 18 now, and here we are into the pits for our final stop onto our next set of medium tires. And it's a lot of clear air around us. Looking at where that group is, making their way through the final corners, we might get caught. It looks like we're probably going to get caught up in that group of slower cars. So hopefully we're quick enough on the exit to get a good run out of the hairpin. You see all those cars going by there are going to likely be our problem. This group coming through turn 1 right now. So you can see them running right by Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Weber. Come out of the pits and we slot right in behind Ricciardo there. Right in front of Hülkenberg. So we're basically out in the same spot that we were in relation to the Renault and Racing Point there. As we head through the DRS detection zone. You see this big clump on the acceleration there, so we crank everything up. We don't want to be stuck behind this group for very long. We don't want to have to run with them all the way until they jump into the pit lane. But there's some squabbling going on just ahead of us. You see a couple cars side by side. You see 3 wide into the chicane start. We're basically 2 by 2 by 2 coming out of the chicane into the next DRS zone. So we are alongside Alex Albon. We've got DRS open. Weber and Norris right in front of us. Split 3 wide. We're taking the inside line here. We're going to have to hold it late on the brakes. Norris kind of dives in, almost hits the side of us, but we were able to make a phenomenal, I think we made 4 positions up in that one straightaway. So we're able to get into some clean air. And just like that, we hop ahead 10 full laps. Clean air, lap 28, last lap of the race. We basically just turned lap times as much as we could. cranked everything up for the last lap or so to make sure that this group of Webber and Ricciardo behind us weren't able to catch up. We see Charles Leclerc, race winner. And here we are, last couple of corners. You can see the other Ferrari and the two Mercedes right in front of us as well. And I think one of the Red Bulls is P2. I believe that's Verstappen, made his way up in a car that is now leading the performance index table. So being able to keep Ricciardo behind us was a good move.
That's it. What a season. Great work this year. Really great work. It's been hard at times, but we've come through.
Well, what a drive that was to take the win for Ferrari today. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent driving, nailing the corners, working to the track conditions and perfecting the team's strategies. They got all of these things right today and the results speak for themselves.
Looking at the podium, you can see that red suit familiar to fans across the globe. A world-class win for a world-class team. Ferrari do it again.
And the final race of the season, and no Mercedes on the podium, which I think that's the first time that's happened all season. Kind of impressive, but Ferrari won 3 with the Red Bull of Verstappen picking off P2.
Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
Daniel Ricciardo certainly impressed me today, an incredible performance.
Nothing can challenge the leaders of the Constructors' Championship at this point, but it's another clear win for Mercedes as they managed to secure the Constructors' title. An incredible performance for the whole team. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend from them as they fight their way towards the top. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So we picked up a solid 8 points with our P6 there, beating both Webber and Ricciardo, the people right around us in the championship. Unfortunately, we came up about 6 points shy of catching Lucas ahead of us, but we held off Ricciardo, who was making a late charge in that strong car. So, Drivers' Champ winner, Lewis Hamilton, and then Valtteri Bottas right behind. George Russell, unfortunately, P17 in the championship. Did not score a lot of points. We were just shy of making that best of the rest. Alfa Romeo with our old teammate Lucas, and then Kimi Räikkönen is the best of the rest car there. They come at P4 in the Constructors' Championship.
Amazing performance out there. I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. We all underestimated you, didn't we?
I'd say you underestimated the team too. When we're in sync, great things can happen, especially on the development side. We really improved the car.
You had a pretty close finish with Lucas. What's it like racing a former teammate?
I mean, it can be challenging, but it really helps having a car that does everything that I ask of it.
Appreciate your time.
And he was definitely closing up on us in the final steps of the race there. So we'll take a quick peek at the rivalry breakdown, which will carry over to the next season as well. We have won 3 rivalries against our teammate George Russell already, and we are leading by 7 points. Checo, we have got also a 7-point lead on our first rivalry battle with him. Take a peek at our resource points and see what our end of season bonus is going to be as well. Good, healthy amount of points. So we've got a good chunk of change to work with for the off season, which I will mess around with at the start of the season 2 episode. This will be just kind of a nice wrap up of season 1.
Nice job this season. You've been performing well, and that's putting us in a strong negotiating position contract-wise. Plus, my 10%'s getting more valuable. So enjoy your break, and keep up the good work next year.
Alright, so here we are back in the garage. It's time for our typical contract negotiation. We are really outperforming our contract value, which is great. So what I did is I just turned up everything to make our contract value as high as possible. So the highest expected qualifying position I could, highest race position, team order, obviously first driver, and then highest
Our
team
proposal has
goal.
been
So it's an
accepted. The new contract
easy
will
sell.
take
We are
effect
able to
from
get
the
all
next
the
race weekend.
bonuses as well, which should really help out with getting the car developed. Now, this contract value can change very drastically next season with the change in regulations, with the depending on how teams have updated and adapted their chassis and durability components. Some teams may take a big drop down because anything you don't adapt gets basically wiped off the board at the start of the next season. So we'll see where our car comes in at the start. We did very well adapting. We should basically lose almost nothing compared to next season. And we can take a look at our trajectory over the race. Where you see that very, very tight midfield battle in the performance index there. Not a huge gap to get up to Renault and Alpha. But there we are, taking a peek at just kind of the overall finishes of the season, how everything went. See that big run that Verstappen went on at the end of the season, but we'll see how the cars shake out for season 2. So join me as we head back to Australia next time for the next race and the next season in F1 2019.